Are you guys ready?
Us, yes. We were ready when we got here.
That's good. I appreciate all you guys coming. Welcome. My name is Jen Beck, for those of you I haven't had a chance to meet. And tonight we're going to talk about silent inflammation. This is really the silent killer. So we're going to talk about a few things tonight. Just to give you an idea, we're going to talk about what is inflammation, how can you tell if you have it, what causes it, and then also what you can do about it. Now, for myself, this is really something that I've become passionate about because when we start looking at the symptoms of it and we start looking at what causes it, a lot of these things we just kind of attribute to old age. We attribute to getting older. When we just don't feel quite as good as we once did, and we don't really look at the root cause. So a lot of times we'll go to a doctor, they'll give us a medication or a surgery and go, this will fix it. And it doesn't work, and then we go, that didn't work. And they go, well, here, try this one. See if that works. And so we get into this cycle where the average person in America today, at the age of 50, is on at least one medication. And most of those people add from one to another to another to another. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the medical industry, don't get me wrong. My arm is hanging off by a tendon, don't sprinkle some herbs on it and, give me some healing touch, give me some drugs and some surgery, right? But if we can really be able to look at the preventative side of things and help protect our bodies so that we don't end up with diseases and factors like silent inflammation, we can live a much healthier, happier life, much into our more mature years, right? In our 70s, 80s, 90s, and 100. So I'll give you an example of really kind of why I'm as passionate about this as I am. About 15 years ago, if you could rewind time and kind of look back into the past, you would see a 25, 26-year-old that was living on Diet Mountain Dew, a half a pot of coffee, fast food, Hostess cupcakes, and just about anything else that was quick and convenient. That would have been me. And most people look at me today, and not to mention the fact that I was also a smoker. And people go, you? Really? Because of the lifestyle that I have today. Understand, it came about by baby steps, and it came about by really one specific factor that was a trigger for my life. My mother has had multiple sclerosis my entire life. And about 15 years ago, she went through a series of relapses where she went from living on her own to being in a nursing home in 6 weeks. She had done every preventative drug to make sure that that never happened, and yet that was the end result. And so I started looking at alternative methods and other ways to be able to help her and just, what happened, what went wrong? And what I found is that there's a lot of things that we can do to be able to heal our bodies that we don't necessarily do on a daily basis because we're not aware of them, we're not educated, or we don't have time for them. So what really moved me is a year after my mom's relapses, I met a woman that had MS the same amount of time as my mom. So we're talking like 26 years at this point. Well, her husband, ironically, was a pharmacist, but she took no drugs. Now, the only issue that this woman had after 26 years of dealing with MS is if she walked across a huge ballroom, she had to hold her husband's arm for stability. Now, wait a minute. My mom has done everything medically possible to make sure that these relapses never happened. And yet she's laying in a nursing home, incapacitated from the waist down, losing strength. This woman's untouched. What's the difference? And so I started doing a lot of research into nutrition and saw people literally reversing disease, eliminating heart disease, reversing diabetes, killing cancer without the medications and the chemo and radiation, reversing MS. And it was at that point in time I was like, I need to do something about this because there are more people out there like my mom that are doing the best that they're educated or know how to do, but don't really have the education and the information to know exactly what we should be doing on a daily basis to really maximize our level of wellness. Okay? So that's kind of where my mission is coming from within my business and within my coaching is to really help no family ever have to go through putting a parent in a nursing home at 49 years old. Steve?
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
That wasn't a very resounding sure.
Well, because one spurs into a lot.
Okay, real quick.
Okay.
I just had 4 surgeries in a real short period of time, and I don't know if it's because of my age, but every doctor, when there are issues, is so quick to say, oh, it's just because you're getting older, it's old age, and it's inflammation. I just wanted to throw that out.
Yes.
So they're already of the mindset to lay it off on something else.
Right. but understand that inflammation causes so many different diseases. So it's a matter of dealing with the inflammation. That's why we'll talk about these 4 specific things this evening, so you really understand it, you can identify it, and then you also know how to mitigate it. So you really can be able to live well and not be subjected to surgeries, and to really look at how to heal our bodies by doing small, simple things every single day that will build that level of wellness. So it doesn't matter if it's 8 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock at night. It doesn't matter how stressed out you are. It doesn't matter what kind of a day you've had. You truly have the ability to feel fantastic and unstoppable and go out and accomplish anything that you want on a daily basis. So that's why, for me, silent inflammation is such an important part, because inflammation is a key to so many different things, right? Classic inflammation is a lot of times what we're talking about when we're looking at joint aches and pains, the little stiffness, things like that, right? What we're talking about tonight is silent inflammation. So classical inflammation hurts, but silent inflammation will actually kill you. This is one of the biggest factors and contributors to heart disease, to cancer, to diabetes, to Alzheimer's. And so looking at it, silent inflammation creates that toxicity, it creates weight gain. It also stops us from being able to lose the weight. And so it's all of these factors. And look at this guy. How many of us feel like the guy in the mirror some days? Even though we're nowhere near that age. That's what silent inflammation does. It can literally rob us of the energy that we're supposed to have on a daily basis, just because of the things that are going on silently within inside of our bodies. So we really want to make sure that we're looking at that. Like I said, it's a contributing factor to cancer, diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer's, arthritis, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia. It's literally psoriasis. You look at a lot of the things that we just attribute to individual diseases or conditions or issues. And really, when you look at the body as a whole, all of these factors are a part of something going on underneath the surface, right? Our body has to go through several different stages of disease before we ever see a symptom. Now, most of us don't do anything to improve our health until we have a symptom. We've been handed a diagnosis, we've gotten an injury, we've gotten a flu, we've gotten sick. Something happens that's that catalyst when we then become to make changes, right? So think about, like, we take our car to the mechanic. Now, how many of us absolutely 100% perfectly maintain their car exactly how standards are supposed to be done in the car? 2 out of the room, 3 out of the room, okay? How many of us look at that same thing with our bodies? 1, 2, right? So a couple of us look at how we can be able to really maximize the performance of our bodies on a daily basis. And so that's what we want to look at, really focusing in on, is all the little things that we can be able to do, all the little things that we can change that will truly allow us to be able to live that life of optimal wellness. Okay? So these are questions that you got to ask yourself. Okay? This determines how much or if you're inflamed. So how many of you wake up and you look at a puffy face in the mirror? Anybody?
Do we have to raise our hands for
Yeah,
these?
really.
It's participation time, right? Okay, answer to yourself. But if you think about it, do you have bags under your eyes? Do your joints and muscles ache? Do you have allergies or asthma? Do you have weight that's impossible to lose? You've tried dieting and it keeps coming back, or you just can't reduce where you're at right now? Do you take ibuprofen, Tylenol, Excedrin, Motrin, Aleve, or any other over-the-counter pain medication? Are you bloated and gassy? Are you easily irritated? Right? How many of us go through our day at work and are like, I'm going to kill it, right? Or we go home and we explode on our family, or we just feel like we can't quite keep things calm and just move through life easily, right? How many of you suffer from brain fog? You're literally going, what was I going to do again? Or it's hard, you're sitting at work and it's hard to be able to make the decisions and make them as quickly as you once did. How many of you wake up and you feel like you're already tired? Or you have that middle of the afternoon where you are just like, I need a nap now, right? Think about if you can be able to leave an imprint with your forefinger on your forearm or your ankle. That is a sign of inflammation, to be able to see that. Do you crave salty or sweet foods? Do you eat hydrogenated oils, non-organic dairy, processed grain, commercial packaged foods, soda? Do you consume artificial sweeteners? I always think there's a few people out there, or maybe in this room, that are dealing with one or a multitude of those things, right? This is our American population today. And we go through life just we don't really pay attention to the fact that we feel crappy because it's come on so gradually that we don't go from, it's not like we're just getting sick or getting the flu where it's bam, you know that there is something absolutely wrong. It's little things that just creep in little by little, and we just gradually feel worse and worse. And we go to our doctor and go, Doc, I'm just tired all the time. I'm just depressed. I'm just this. I'm just that. And then we get a script a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times we get a script and they send us about our business. And we go through life expecting that that's exactly how we should feel on a daily basis. Why? Because we have every commercial under the sun talking about psychotropic drugs telling us, have you ever felt sad? Have you ever had a bad day? You need to take some of our drug, right? Or they have such great, fantastic pictures, and then the side effects are the longest part of the commercial, but that's where they show the happiest pictures, right? So we think that this is the answer. We think that if there's just some miracle thing out there, that we can be able to have that as the next thing, right? I have a lot of clients that come to me when I first start working with them. They have the Dr. Oz syndrome. How many of you guys watch Dr. Oz? A few of you, okay? So Dr. Oz takes a lot of the minutia, a lot of the little things. If you just do this, if you wake up in the morning and you drink a glass of warm water with lemon, it'll help detoxify you. If you drink a glass of cold water in the morning, it will help to be able to fire up your organs. If you drink a glass of cold water in the morning, it'll help you lose weight. And it's all these little, if you only do this, then you're going to have this result. I had a couple that came to me that I'm working with, and they came to me after watching 7 episodes of Dr. Oz that they had taped in one day. Can I tell you how that session went? Now, apple cider vinegar. How much am I supposed to take? When am I supposed to take that? Have you heard of this green coffee bean extract stuff? I mean, I can't find it on the store shelves because Dr. Oz mentioned it. So it's like all of this stuff that we could do, and it could make us healthier, but it's not one little thing that we can do that will be the godsend and be able to eliminate all of our problems and make us well, right? So we really have to look at this in a broad perspective and really look at how the body as a whole is really functioning and what we do to ourselves on a daily basis and what we can do to help ourselves on a daily basis, okay? So if you look at inflammation, the definition of it is a physiological suffocation of cells. The outer membrane becomes clogged and transport in and out of the cell becomes ineffective. So we're not able to get nutrients in there, we're not able to convert sugar in there. Our cells are just deprived a lot of things that they need on a daily basis. And a lot of these are caused, like I said, by things that we put into our body on a daily basis, right? You look at refined carbohydrate consumption. How many of us like sugar, right? Trans fats, saturated fats, even processed grains. So a lot of these are the processed convenient foods that we tend towards on a daily basis because of our busy schedule, right? You've got omega-6 consumption, which is a lot of the bad fats, a lot of the fried foods. Even beef that isn't been grass-fed has omega-6s in it, which will cause inflammation. This is where beef really got a bad name because beef itself, grass-fed beef, actually has good omega-3s in it. It actually has great nutrients for us if we eat it in moderation and it's grass-fed. The way that we feed our cows today is not grass-fed, unless you're going out and investing in grass-fed beef, right? Most of it is fed by corn, which makes the cows sick, so they get hormones, then they get antibiotics, and they get all this stuff fed to them, so they mass produce them, and we get more food. The challenge is that it's creating a lot of damage to the inside of our body at the same time. Okay? Looking at toxic substances, alcohol, caffeine, carbonated beverages, all of these cause inflammation in our bodies. Looking at just our body's ability to detoxify some of this stuff. Have you guys ever lost weight and then you hit a plateau and you just couldn't release any more weight? Well, our body hits a plateau and it goes, you know what? I'm toxed out enough. You store all of your toxins in your fat cells. I'm not releasing anymore until you get rid of some of these because we don't have the ability to eliminate them the way that we should based on how much stuff we're putting in and based on lack of water and just a lot of the habits that we have on a daily basis don't allow our bodies to function and detox the way that they should. Okay? Looking at stress. Stress will absolutely have a huge impact on not just our brain, not just our emotions, not just our energy, but it really is toxic to our entire bodies. Think about your car. If you left your car out in the weather and it sat there for 3 years, you never washed it, you never waxed it, it just sat in the sun, sat in the elements, the paint would oxidize, right? It would fade, it would become broken down. That's exactly what stress does to the inside of our bodies. The same thing as oxidizing our cars is oxidizing our cells. So we need to make sure that we do stress relief, right? That may be going out for a nice, pleasant walk. It may be doing yoga. It may be just sitting quietly for 10 minutes. How many of us actually sit still and do nothing on a daily basis? Right? We are so busy trying to get everything accomplished on our to-do list that we don't take time to breathe half the time. It's amazing talking to a lot of stress therapists and a lot of people that are working with people on stress issues, just getting them to breathe deeply and actually expand their diaphragm. Because most of us, we breathe very shallowly, not quite that loud, but we breathe very shallowly, and we don't really expand our diaphragm. We don't have the ability to expel a lot of those toxins through our breath pathways. So we've really got to look at how we're acting and how we're interacting with our bodies on a daily basis in a multitude of different ways. Okay? And then the last thing is the impairment to the nervous system. And I'm going to have Dr. Owens talk a little bit about that as well. I've seen a lot of people talking about MS with my mom. I've seen a lot of people with MS actually have, between dietary changes and some upper cervical work, which is really realigning and reinforcing the nervous system, have been able to completely reverse it. So I'm going to have him spend a few minutes talking about just really how the nervous system interacts with our body and our health as a whole. Now, if you look at Hippocrates, he was the father of modern medicine, right? We've all heard of the Hippocratic Oath, right? And he said, "Let food be thy medicine." Now, there's two sections of looking at nutrition, and that's one is the macronutrients. That's your protein, your carbs, and your fats, right? The other is the micronutrients, which is looking at the vitamins and minerals and antioxidants and all of the nutrients that are in those macronutrients. Okay, so you have in whole foods and good foods, you have vitamins, antioxidants, and minerals in all of those good wholesome foods. Now, a lot of the processed stuff, they'll strip most of that out and then add in 2 or 3 or 4 of them back in, so they call it enriched. Okay, so if you ever see that on a label, just put it back on the shelf. Don't eat it. Okay. So when we're looking at really how to be able to take care of our health and the foods that we should be consuming on a daily basis, we want to look at doing a low glycemic index diet. Okay? How many of you guys are familiar with the glycemic index? A few of you? Okay, so that's really looking at the amount of sugar that's transitioned into our bloodstream and how quickly that happens, the impact that it has on spiking our blood sugar. Okay? If you know somebody that's had challenges with losing weight, a lot of times we're not eating enough or we're eating in the wrong balance. So go back to the macronutrients. We need to have the protein, the carbs, and the fat in the proper balance for our metabolic design, for how our body processes those foods. Okay? We either have a slow-moving metabolism, a fast-converting metabolism, or we're right in the middle where we should be. But we need to take that into consideration on the percentages of protein, carbs, and fats that we eat on a daily basis. Okay? Eating a low glycemic index diet allows our body to stabilize that blood sugar. Because when we spike our blood sugar, we also spike our insulin. When that happens, it turns your fat burners off and turns the fat storers on. So it's really key that we're really looking at how our body interacts and how it processes those foods so we can stabilize our blood sugar and really make sure that we're getting the nourishment as well as the energy conversion that we need to feel fantastic on a daily basis. Okay? So low glycemic index, this is what we want to really shoot for, which is the carbohydrates that break down the slowest. When we're talking about low glycemic, it's a lot of vegetables, right? It's berries, some green apples, more of the true whole grains like quinoa and whole grain brown rice. And even those are actually more on the high glycemic, but they're way better than wheat and corn and all that stuff that's always processed, okay? So we want to look at a low glycemic index. This is a reference that I have, and it's on your handout as well, the glycemic index. So you can actually look at the difference in where foods come in. So you look at a banana. A banana is one of the highest sugars. There's 28 grams of sugar in one banana. Okay? Convert that into teaspoons of sugar. That's 7 teaspoons of sugar in one banana.
Wow.
High glycemic, low glycemic. High, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's really looking at that, right? And a lot of people eat their bananas really ripe. So there's very little fiber in there because as they ripen, that fiber breaks down, so the sugar increases. So we really need to look at how we're eating our foods, the most freshest, the best, picking them, if we had the ability to pick them off the tree ourselves, that would be the best case scenario. We don't. So local is better than obviously having it come from Thailand or Costa Rica or something like that. Having them local and organic is really the best of what we're looking for, so that you're getting the most nutrient density. You're not getting any antibiotic or any pesticides and herbicides, at least from that farm, right? So that's looking at organic. That's really about the only certification or the only label on food that you'll see that has any kind of, in my opinion, any kind of credibility or anything that you can put your trust in. Are they perfect? No, because you have a farm of, let's say you have a farm of Roundup Ready soybeans, which are the most pollutant, toxic things you could possibly put in your body. And then next to it, you have an organic field of soybeans that have no Roundup on them. But the wind picks them up, brings them over, and drops them down. There's actually a nutrition company that I work with that they have probably the best as far as fingerprinting ingredients go to make sure there's no toxicity, so they measure it for purity and potency with every single raw material. They took in a shipment from upstate New York and they tested it, and it showed positive for a pesticide that was only used on winter wheat in Minnesota. How does that happen? Rainwater and wind picks it up, brings it over, and drops it down. So really looking at, we need to make sure we're getting the best quality, we're making sure that we're getting the freshest. Now, the two top places that I know that you can be able to buy local and organic would be Whole Foods. And the other one is actually my newer favorite, which is Green Bean Delivery. If you're not familiar with that, they have organic and local, and they drop it off at your house. And it's actually fairly reasonable compared to what you pay for in a grocery store to actually have it delivered to your house. So Green Bean Delivery is a great option to get good quality produce that's in season, local, and organic. Okay? So again, we want to focus on eating more of the low glycemic foods on a daily basis. Now, some of the other things that we want to look at changing is really looking at eliminating the processed grains and sugar. Okay? Anything white in your diet should be gone. White flour, white sugar, white bread, white rice, white pasta. If it's white, it ain't right. I mean, literally, it is poison for your body because there is zero nutritional value left in that. And all it is doing is going straight into your bloodstream. There's no nutritional value, there's no value to it, period, other than it's filling our stomach. How many of you think that eating grains on a daily basis, multiple servings, is a good idea? Okay? That's what I was taught growing up. For dinner, we always had a grain. We always had at least one canned vegetable. The grain is usually rice-a-roni. And we had a canned vegetable, and then we had some type of protein. And in my opinion, this is just my opinion, but I believe it goes back to the Depression days, when we were looking at being able to fill our family stomachs. We didn't have the ability to have the meat. That was expensive. We didn't have the ability to have other sources of protein. We didn't have the ability, because of droughts, to be able to really create the crops and things like that and the surplus that we have today. But we did have the ability to be able to make bread. Buy a big bag of flour and a little bit of the other ingredients to put in it. You can be able to feed and fill a stomach for a long time, can't you? The challenge is that we're getting no nutritional value from that whatsoever. So going back, 100, 200 years, way before we had cash crops, you could still get some of the zinc and some of the other nutrients from the soil. We used to rotate our crops. So you'd have one crop, and then the next year you'd plant a different crop, so that crop would replenish the soil for this crop, another year or 5 years down the road. Well, now we farm the same crop in the same field year after year after year after year. Farming wheat in the same field 5 years in a row, 80% of the zinc is gone. So you look at one of the biggest things that zinc helps protect is the male prostate. Look when we started doing cash crops, and look at male prostate cancer rates. They both have the same timeline. So really looking at the nutrient deficiencies we have, Journal of American Medical Association came out and said that 74% of all disease is linked to some type of nutritional deficiency. And most of us think that it's because our body is just breaking down, or it's the environment or something like that. So much of it is directly related to what we put in our mouth and we don't put in our mouth. Okay? So looking for hidden sugars. Anything that ends in "ose" on a label is sugar. dextrose, sucrose, sucralose. I mean, there's a ton of different names for them. Those are all versions of sugar. Okay, so it's being very aware and actually stopping to read the labels of exactly what we're getting into our bodies from our foods on a daily basis. This is why I started doing grocery store tours. When I moved to Cincinnati, I came from Minnesota. That's where I'm originally from. And in Minnesota, no judgment whatsoever. Minnesota, there's 1 overweight person, there's 7 in Cincinnati. I believe a lot of that is the influence of the Southern cooking coming up through the South, right? So that's just the statistics and what I noticed going from one to the other. But I also noticed there was a different level of education as well as activity levels, right? Minnesota, we expect the winter to happen, so it's like, it's cold, snowing, whatever. I'm gonna go ride my bike 20 miles, no big deal. Here it's like, the snow comes and we forget what to do about it between month to month, right? It's not something that we're used to and we expect because it doesn't happen. In Minnesota, you'll never see a 60-degree day. Would you agree, Dick?
Absolutely.
Dick is also from Minnesota, and it's like, I think it was -14 when we had like +20 last week. So there's a huge difference. That's what I mean. People just expect it. They just deal with it. It is. So, but one of the biggest things was the lack of education as far as really what real food is compared to what I call TV nutrition. Because you look at the food manufacturers, so much of that is the front of the box tells us how fantastic it is. Cheerios is going to lower your cholesterol. Not so much. In theory, oats will help to lower your cholesterol because they're very high fiber. But Cheerios has about that much of that fiber, and a lot of it is put back in there, right? So we're not getting the true benefits of what we think that we are based on what the food manufacturers would like us to believe, okay? That was their retaliation. The FDA said you have to list the nutrition facts so people know how bad your foods are. They came out and said, well, if we're going to do that, then you need to let us put on the front of the package how good our products are. And we can agree that there's some pretty amazing claims about how great those foods are for us, right? Like Activia. Activia, 3 servings a day and it'll help regulate you. But did you realize that a couple years ago they had a class action lawsuit against them? Because Bifidus regularis, the name that they made up for the probiotics in there, is not a real probiotic. So it's misleading information to get people to buy their products. So things like vitamin water, right? A bottle of vitamin water has 28 grams of sugar minimum. 28 grams, divide that by 4. Again, we're still looking at 7 teaspoons of sugar that we pour into a bottle, and because we don't read the ingredients, we think it's vitamin water, it's gotta be healthy, we give it to our kid. Now we have kids, I heard a statistic that in 65, and Kim, correct me if I'm wrong, 65% of people in Ohio are in Cincinnati.
No, it's Hamilton County.
Hamilton County. 65% of Hamilton County
Or obese.
are obese. 65%. Now, here's what blew me away. I heard a study, this was done last year, beginning of last year. 9 out of 10 people in America believe they eat healthy. How do those numbers work? So a lot of what we're doing and we're thinking that we're doing are so positive and good for us because that's what the front of the box tells us. And we're really polluting our bodies and destroying our health little by little because we just we're not aware of it. And we don't have the time given our schedules to really sit down and read labels and figure out exactly what to do and what not to do, right? That's why I'm here. So you also want to look at, like I said, avoid artificial sugars with the exception of stevia. Xylitol, if you're baking, is another acceptable one. And then looking at grains, really avoid any grain. And for most people, we should avoid grains. Well, I shouldn't say most. There's a large population, the protein metabolic designs, that should avoid 99% of grains at all times. Most of us should be avoiding wheat, corn. Those are probably the 2 big ones, white rice, more of the processed rices, things like that. And it's really because our bodies can't utilize what we're feeding it. One of the biggest factors in wheat is gluten, okay? They've actually manufactured our crops now and changed their genetic structure to increase the amount of gluten because it adds texture and it adds elasticity to our breads. How many of you know somebody who has gluten issues? They're on a gluten-free diet, they're gluten sensitive, or they have lupus, fibromyalgia, plantar fasciitis, or some other pain issue. All of those are related to gluten. And every single day we're going out and eating whole grain, thinking that we're doing something that's good for us, when really we're polluting our bodies and slowing down our digestive system, creating inflammation, stopping up the receptor sites in our nervous system. I mean, it's amazing the things that we put into our bodies that we've been told since we were this high, how good they are. Think about the pyramid, right? What's on the bottom? Grains, cereal, bread, pasta, rice, all of those things that we're supposed to have at least one serving per meal. And so much of that, because of the way it's grown today, is sabotaging our health and stripping us of energy, stripping our immune system, and really making our bodies not have the ability to function remotely at our capacity. And most of us are already under our capacity mentally. They've done studies and things like that. We use, 10% of it, of our brain capacity. But you're on gluten, you even have less. There's a research study that came out at the end of last year, and they said that with gluten, it actually stops up the receptor sites of our nervous system. Well, that's also where intuition comes from, right? Remember I always heard, trust your intuition, trust your gut? Our guts and our intuition don't work anymore because we have so much gluten in there that slows it down like glue. So whenever you hear the word gluten, or you think about eating a grain, think about it actually acting like gluten in your system and slowing it down. Okay? So acceptable grains, quinoa. If you don't know what that is, it's spelled Quinoa. And it's more of a seed, so it's a complete protein, and it doesn't have the same properties as a lot of the other grains. So quinoa, whole grain brown rice. If you're going to do a bread, okay, some of you guys are like, I can't give up my bread. I get it. There's gluten-free breads, so you can do rice, tapioca, almond, or coconut. Okay, they're a different flavor than normal bread, but they're still acceptable to be able to have a sandwich or have a piece of toast or something like that. If you're going to do wheat at all, make sure it's sprouted. Okay, sprouted grain means that it's still alive. Like if you take a loaf of Ezekiel bread, which is a sprouted grain, it's in the freezer section at your grocery store. If you put it on the counter in 3 days, it will mold. Half of it will be already moldy in 3 days. Why? Because it's still alive, right? So it's really looking at the quality of our foods, not just the quantity of our foods.
Is Ezekiel bread okay?
Ezekiel, depending on your body type and depending on the quantity you're eating, it still is gluten. There's still added gluten in there to be able to create the consistency of the bread, okay? So with all gluten products, I tell people to do it in moderation. If you have some inflammation, some of those symptoms we were talking about, eliminate it for 30 to 60 days and then add it back in slowly and see how your body reacts to it. A lot of people get gassy, they get bloated, they get brain fog, they get all headaches, joint pain, things like that can all be directly related to gluten. And it can be a 30-minute or a 4-day delay time in when it shows up in your body. So it's not always, I have a piece of gluten and I feel bad. Some days it's days later, right? Okay. Switch bad fats to good fats. So eliminate the fast foods, eliminate the fried foods. Look out for partially hydrogenated oils, corn, vegetable oil, and soybean oils. Okay. Now while I'm talking, I'm going to pass this around. And I want you guys to just look at it and guess how old these are. Okay? And at the end, after they get back to the room, I'll tell you. Okay? So you want to eliminate fried foods, you want to eliminate fast foods, the oils, and a lot of people, I mean, I grew up, my mom cooked with Wesson and, vegetable oil and stuff like that. All of those oils are rancid oils. There's really no nutritional value. Yes, they're good for cooking because you can make stuff in them, but they're pollution for our bodies. So it's really looking at, again, the quality of our oils. So switch it and go to healthy fats. So you're looking at avocados, raw nuts and seeds, olives, olive oil, coconut oil, grapeseed oil, raw cheeses, which means they've not been pasteurized. Okay? When we pasteurize our dairy, period, it strips all of the digestive enzymes that we need to break down the lactose. So there's people that are literally lactose intolerant that can eat raw cheese and be fine with it because their body has the nutrients that it needs and the enzymes that it needs to be able to break that down. So understand that there's a lot of people that have developed these challenges over time. Like we didn't wake up one day and we're gluten intolerant. We didn't wake up one day and lactose intolerant, right? Those are things that we've developed over time based on the small things that we put into our bodies on a daily basis.
What about canola oil?
Canola oil is actually Canada oil.
Is that not good?
Not good. Okay. canola oil we've heard touted is because it's lower in saturated fat, which is great, right? So you want to have lower saturated fat. But again, there's no nutrition in there, and it's a very cheap oil that they manufacture in a lab. Okay? But yet, again, we're told canola oil is better because it takes a sliver out of this study and says because it's lower in saturated fat, it's the best. And now all of a sudden we have a lot of people eating things that are lower in saturated fats. But see, we need those healthy fats for our bodies to function at all on a daily basis. They make up our cell walls, our brain tissue, our eye tissue. They help to regulate our cardiovascular system. So if we don't regulate all of our hormones, like our insulin levels, so if we don't have those healthy fats, we're really at a disadvantage when it comes to our health. And that's why it's important to have things more like the olive, the grapeseed, and the coconut oil. And I know some people go, well, coconut oil, that's 100% saturated fat, right? And it is. But it's a healthy fat that our bodies can utilize. Okay? So it's not always what we've been told, right? It's kind of like the red meat thing. Red meat isn't necessarily bad. The red meat that we eat today is not good. But red meat inherently isn't bad because our ancestors ate that for how many hundreds and thousands of years, right? So it's looking at really switching out the bad and adding in the good to it. And again, talking about meats, okay? Yes?
Is safflower just like canola?
Yeah,
Kind of the same deal?
yeah. It's not, I mean, it's
So outside of those
a little
three,
better.
the olive, grapeseed, and coconut, those are probably it?
those are the best.
Okay.
I mean, is there another one that you were,
No, I mean, I've been using canola for the reason that you just cited,
yeah.
and predominantly use olive.
And olive is good up until a certain heat temperature because then it breaks down and it becomes rancid. So if you're cooking at medium or higher heats, I would switch and do grapeseed oil or coconut oil.
Okay.
Okay, either one of those are better options for higher
High heat
temperature.
for cooking.
Mhm. Yeah, so I mean, if you're going to do a stir fry, something like that, don't do olive, do grapeseed because that's more of a higher heat cook.
Okay.
Okay. And a lot of people, like, I didn't really understand how bad our meat industry really is. If you really want to understand it, go watch a movie called Food Inc. Food Inc. It really goes through, and it's not graphic. Some of the ones that are out there are really graphic. This is just more of a documentary. It shows some of the growing conditions. Like, there's a lot of people. So McDonald's is one of my favorite commercials. Fresh from the farm to your table, right? And then they show them bringing in boxes and crates of Tyson chicken. Tyson, next to Value brand, is about one of the worst ones you could possibly buy because they're mass produced in these 100,000 birds in one essentially tin building, right? Not called a silo, I don't know what you call them, but one coop that holds 100,000 birds.
Coop or a Quonset hut.
Yeah, I mean, but they're massive, right? Put 100,000 birds in there. Every day they pull out a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen dead birds. They feed these birds so many hormones in their feed that their breasts get so big. You ever seen these breasts? They're like massive. It's like a pound for one breast. These chickens are grown so fast and their breasts get so large that their legs actually break. Or they'll take 2 steps and fall down because they just don't have the energy to do this. Okay? One of my favorite things to talk about is Kentucky Fried Chicken. Remember when it was still called that? That's when it was still chicken. Today, they actually mass produce those birds and grow them so quickly that they don't fully develop. They don't fully develop their flowers, or their feathers. So they don't fully develop. A lot of them don't have the full beaks. A lot of them don't have some of their parts because they're produced so quickly to be able to mass produce them and keep us eating all this wonderful, delicious food. Right? So it's really, again, it's going back to the quality of what we're getting because anything that they give those chickens, anything that they give those cows, anything they give those animals, period, goes into us. And so if you look at a lot of the stuff that we're getting, like, so you can have Tyson, they can have a huge thing that's free range or that's cage free. That means that they have a 100,000 square foot building and there's a hole this big.
They can get out.
The birds could go out, doesn't mean they do. Right? So it's really understanding, and that's why I tell people organic is the best. If you can find, there's a local farm in Loveland, and the name is escaping me right now, but they do organic and they do local processing. There's other places that you can be able to get stuff. Organic is really and truly my first choice because at least you know that you're not getting hormones, you're not getting antibiotics, you're not getting meat byproducts milled up and put back into their food that they're feeding back into the animals. It's really not a happy place when you're really thinking about what they do to our foods on a daily basis. So these are the things that I recommend buying. The grass-fed beef, that's their natural diet. When they eat their natural diet, they're happy. When they're happy cows, they actually have good nutrients and good fats in them. When they eat the corn and the grain and all that other crap, they don't have any of that. So that's what creates the omega-6s, which is the bad fats that we end up with. Right? Like equate that to saturated fat. So instead of eating a burger, you're getting a burger with bad fats in it on top of it. Okay? Looking at wild-caught fish or Alaskan fish, right? Stay away from Atlantic, stay away from farm-raised. Okay? Suzanne, you have a question?
What about like Amish meat?
There's a lot of debate about that right now, only because Amish used to actually raise their own Amish chickens and actually process them Amish ways. Now, big companies go in and buy the Amish farms on the Amish land and then take the chickens and go out and process them somewhere else. So again, unless you really know where you're getting it from, it's hard to make any kind of a true decision based on quality or about quality unless you see the organic stamp or unless you have the ability to talk to somebody that knows where that animal came from. Whole Foods, they know the farmers, they know the people that raise those animals, so they can be able to give you more background information on that and help you be able to make a better decision of quality versus just quantity. Okay, Steve?
So farm-raised fish is not good? I
No.
mean,
Like tilapia is an example of farm-raised fish, right? And it's very similar to how they mass produce our cows, how they mass produce our chickens. They feed them full of all kinds of hormones and additives to their feed to be able to make them grow faster and bigger. But they're in a pen of their own stuff too.
mercury and that kind of thing for like salmon in particular?
Right, so salmon, do Alaskan salmon. And again, make sure you're looking at doing things in moderation. Like tuna has a higher mercury content than salmon does,
Okay.
okay? But like tilapia, a lot of people love tilapia because it's a great light white fish and it doesn't have that fishy flavor to it and stuff like that, but it's farm raised. I was talking to a guy at the seafood counter and he said if we actually put tilapia into the ocean or into not the ocean, but the lake or whatever, it would kill all the other fish in there. Because those fish are so aggressive. They would literally kill everything else. So again, we're looking at the quality, we're looking at the happiness factor of the animals that we're eating because it's amazing, but there really are energetics of food. So if you have angry, mistreated animals and you eat it, guess what it does to your moods? So it's
The wild-caught fish, no Atlantic?
right. Atlantic is where they do a lot of the farm-raised fish.
But if it says, so if it says wild-caught.
Most of it won't say wild caught if it's Atlantic. Most of it will say Pacific, Alaskan, or wild caught. And even some of the wild caught now is coming from Thailand and South America and stuff like that.
I don't get that, should I, or not?
Not necessarily.
Yeah,
Local's always best,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Tell me about deer.
Go shoot it. I mean, really and truly, deer is probably one of the healthiest meats because they eat their natural habitat. We're not out there, well, I shouldn't say that. Who was I talking
They
to?
eat the crops with pesticides on it though.
Yeah.
Well, that's true.
They're
Depending on where
looking
you're
for our
farming,
yards.
right? Depending on where you're farming. But I had a couple come in to me, and they said that she had surgery on her arm, so they went out, and everybody kept bringing them dinner, right, for the next 2 weeks, and it was pasta and pizza and pasta and more pasta. And how about some more pasta? And they had 10 days of pasta and pizza nonstop. And they have like 9 feral cats that live in their backwoods, and then they have all these deer. So they literally went out and just threw all of the meat or all the food into the woods and just watched them eat it. They had some pizza that was like a white sauce with pasta on top of it and everything else. The cats wouldn't even eat it.
Oh.
You know that's a bad sign. So realize that animals know what they should be eating and what they shouldn't be eating. We just forget to really pay attention to it, right? So if you really tune into your body and think about, I just ate that, hour later, what was my energy like? How do I feel? What's my mood? What's my mental clarity? Your body will tell you exactly what you should be eating and what you shouldn't be eating based on how you feel. So it's really important to tap into that and listen to your body, listen to what it says, okay? So eating a healing diet. So these are really, just to recap, eat a low glycemic diet, replace the bad fats with the good fats, replace the toxic meat with the clean meat, and eliminate the sugar and the processed grains. Okay, so those are kind of like my 4 laws when it comes to really looking at how to be able to heal your body. Okay, so anybody have a guess on how old these are?
They could be 5 years old.
Yeah.
then.
So I heard a month, I heard 5 years,
30 days.
30? 30 days, a month,
3 years.
3 years, 19 months,
Wow.
McDonald's,
Oh,
right?
I recognize this right.
And it looks exactly the same as it did the day that I got it.
Oh,
Okay, if we're eating dead food, guess what we are?
oh,
Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow,
oh.
but we really need to make sure we're looking at not just the quantity and filling our stomach, we need to look at the quality and really how we're living and what we can give our bodies on a daily basis. Okay? So, the other 2 things that I recommend for being able to overcome inflammation on top of eating is really making sure we're supporting our body with additional nutrients to fill in the gaps, right? How many of us eat 3 to 5 servings of fish, wild caught fish, every week? Couple. Our fitness people in the back. Right? So most people, if they're lucky, they get 1, right? And it's amazing because we need 3 to 5 servings of deep cold water fish just to be able to help us get what we need as far as essential fats go, because those are very high in essential fatty acids. They did a study of the Eskimos, and the Eskimos have the highest diet in fat. They eat a lot of whale blubber as their main staple. But ironically, they have one of the lowest occurrences of heart disease because they eat so much deep cold water fish as well. So really looking at that, it can be able to help heal our bodies and be able to give us the essential fats that our body needs to function properly. Okay? So looking at antioxidants, these are huge. Antioxidants are actually what goes to counteract the stress, to counteract the sugar, to counteract all the other toxins that our body absorbs and takes in on a daily basis. Okay? This is one of the ones that I think, from all the research that I've done, from all the companies that I've looked at, this one by far has the most potency for healing. I've used this with clients where literally, I mean, their blood sugars were at 398. By using this every day, in 90 days, they dropped them to 98 and were able to stabilize them without changing anything else. Didn't have to go on diabetic medication. I've had people, I have a woman that was dealing with stage 4 breast cancer. The doctor said, we can't give you any more chemo or radiation. We're going to kill you before we kill the cancer. And she did what we call a saturation dose of this, which is 4 ounces a day. So really super accelerating the healing. And in 4 months, she was cancer-free. 9 months later, 6 months later, she was off 8 of her 9 medications. The doctor told her to lose another 30 pounds. She'd be off her blood pressure medication too. I've had people that dealing with endometriosis, MS. I mean, you look at fibromyalgia and some of the other inflammation diseases that are out there. It really has an amazing ability. Plantar fasciitis, because it has like the resveratrol in there. Have you heard about resveratrol? This is the active ingredient in red wine. Okay, so we've all heard a glass of red wine is good for us, right? Well, in every 1 ounce of Genesis, there's the equivalent of 10 bottles worth of red wine without the alcohol.
Oh, God.
Can't put everything in there. We just got to put the good stuff,
I'll tell you what.
right? But it has 10 bottles worth of resveratrol in that 1 little ounce. Here's the kicker: it tastes good. It tastes like juicy juice. It's pomegranate, apple, and grape as the foundation. There's aloe vera in there, which also helps with inflammation and healing a digestive tract. And then on top of the resveratrol, you have ellagic acid. This is from pomegranate. Pomegranate is the highest cancer-fighting food on the face of the earth. So in every 1 ounce, there's a medium pomegranate. The external 24 is glutathione. You ever heard of that? Glutathione is the master antioxidant that helps all the other antioxidants in your body do their job. So the way that Symmetry has created this specific product, it's enterically coated, so it actually goes through your digestive system so it can be absorbed and help the rest of the antioxidants in your body work that much better. So it really supercharges everything. And the other part of the external 24 is something that's called SODs. How many of you guys have seen that commercial for the melon that is the miracle melon of healing, and it's in skincare on this infomercial, and like it's now the latest and greatest, right? There's always that latest and greatest thing. So with the melon, they discovered it because in Africa and some of the other countries in Europe, they would cut open this melon and be able to sit it on a table throughout their entire wedding ceremony or their entire funeral ceremony, and it wouldn't rot. it wouldn't go bad. And so they actually learned how to be able to extract this, and that's the other component in the external 24. So you look at just those antioxidants, the power of them is phenomenal. Resveratrol is amazing at being able to stop inflammation, actually heal damaged DNA, clean out the mitochondria, which is the engine in our cells, and have all of these healing benefits, as well as, then you add in the glyconutrients, which is from the aloe vera. The polysaccharides are, again, another healing strain that comes from a lot of fruits. You've got polyphenols, which come from plants, and then you've got all the other 14 other healing herbs on top of that. So all of that is in 1 ounce of Genesis. And like I said, it tastes good. How many of us taste, like, take stuff and you don't want to do it? Yes, so the Genesis is awesome. It really has all those healing benefits. You look at cinnamon, it helps to balance your blood sugar. You look at garlic, it's great for your digestive system, it's great for your immune system. So each and every one of these ingredients has additional healing benefits, okay? The other thing that I recommend is doing an essential fatty acid, okay? Let me back up 1 second. In Cincinnati, this is a statistic that I heard a couple years ago, so I have not updated it, I have not seen updated stats, but we are in like the top 5 for cancer in America. Because of the air that we breathe, because of the stuff that's in our water, and obviously as well as the foods that we're eating on a daily basis. So having the ability to kind of fill in that gap and give our body what it needs to heal allows us to be able to start here and build from here, right? And then it helps us to be able to get to that next level of optimal wellness, where then we can be able to maintain it more with our foods on a daily basis, okay? The essential fats are important because they help to prevent or improve all of these different issues. Looking at heart disease, chronic pain, cancer, skin disorders, depression. Did you know that in the States we have the most amount of people taking prescription drugs than any other country in the world? And in Europe, they use essential fats for depression. They don't do medications over there. You're feeling depressed, you're probably low on vitamin D and probably low in essential fatty acids. Go get some from your local pharmacy, or, you know, over there you need a prescription to get them. But you can be able to go get them from your local pharmacy, and they help to heal your body and support your body. I mean, think about it. We have an amazing ability to heal ourselves, don't we? Like you break your arm, you cut yourself. Now, granted, you may need to have the bone set so it heals in the right place, but it heals itself, doesn't it? You go out and have surgery. You can go out and have massive surgery, and your body heals itself, right? You may need to get put back in the right places, but your body has an amazing ability to heal itself. We just need to give it the building blocks to allow it to do that, okay? So that's where essential fats come in. Fertility, there's a lot of women out there that don't have the ability to conceive, or they're struggling to do that. A lot of them are deficient in the essential fats in their diet. And by doing that, I mean, I have a gal that her and her husband had gone through 2 rounds of in vitro fertilization. No success. All of it was out of pocket. So, I mean, they've invested at that time, they invested over $40,000 in fertility treatments with no results. They're going, oh, we don't know what else to do. And I had somebody refer them to me. I had her do a cleanse, a product called Female Balance, Genesis, Omega, and a multivitamin. And then I had her husband do a product called Male Balance. Within 2.5 months, they conceived. It's amazing. When you give your body what it needs, it functions the way that it should. So it's really making sure that we have what we need on a daily basis. ADHD, a lot of kids are going and they're having a bowl of cereal in the morning, no fats in it, all processed carbs, very little protein, especially if mom's being healthy and giving them fat-free milk, right? And so they have no fats, they have no protein, they have nothing. And all of a sudden, a few hours later, their blood sugar bottoms. Well, critical thinking, logical thinking, gone. Mood swings, look out. And it's all of those things that we attribute to ADHD when we put a kid on a medication, when really they just need to change their diet and really give their bodies what it needs to function properly. I had a kid that, when I first met with his parents, he was literally 6 years old. Halfway through the morning would stand up, throw his chair one way, throw his desk the other way, and throw a temper tantrum. This happened 3 out of 5 days. He was eating a bowl of cereal at 5:30 in the morning before he went to the babysitter's. He had lunch at noon, which was processed crap from the cafeteria. And then he would wait until they got home. His parents picked him up. At 5 o'clock, they went out to dinner. They didn't cook at all. Out to dinner, either fast food or a restaurant. And then by 7 o'clock, they were home asleep because they didn't have any energy. This is how this kid lived. No wonder he was having challenges focusing and concentrating and being calm in school. Within a week of changing his diet and just adding protein in the morning for breakfast, no more temper tantrums. When he started actually getting a snack, he had a small handful of nuts halfway through the morning. His concentration improved, he was able to stay in his seat. So it's amazing the little things that we can do that can have a huge impact. Okay? Brain trauma as well. Again, essential fats make up our brain tissue. So if we're deficient in those, we're going to have a hard time healing what we don't have the ability to create. Right? So they naturally reduce and prevent inflammation. Really looking at the healing and maximum like optimal wellness, we'd be looking at 2,000 to 3,000 milligrams of essential fats on a daily basis. From deep cold water fish. This can be in a supplement. If you're doing 3 to 5 servings of fish a week and you're doing a ton of avocados and healthy nuts and healthy fats and things like that, you could probably drop that down to about 1,000 milligrams a day. We still need some to make sure we're filling in any of the gaps, right? For 90% of our population. Now, the biggest things with fish oils is you want to look for quality, not cost. Consumer Labs did a study, this was about 7 years ago, and they came back and they said that 35% of all fish oils on a store shelf are rancid by the time people buy them. You ever taken a fish oil and it comes back on you?
Yeah.
Right? And some people, they don't have the ability to digest them because of the fillers and the binders that are in there. And other times it's because they're rancid. So these are the 3 that I trust the most. Symmetries I like, probably one of the best because it's in a dry caplet form. So you get half the calcium you need on a daily basis, and then they add in flaxseed oil, board seed oil, and the purified fish oil so you don't get any of the toxicity in there. And so it really allows your body to get a good source of essential fats that is 100% pure and free of any toxicities like mercury and things like that. Where if you go to Costco or Walgreens or something like that, you really have no idea the quality that you're getting based on where you're buying it, right? Nordic Naturals is another one. They have a liquid one, so if you're somebody that can't do pills at all, the Advanced Omega is a small pill, but if you don't like pills, that's an option. And then I know that they have Innate Choice, which is another good brand that they use here at Upper Cervical. So any one of those 3, in my opinion, are good quality. And again, it really goes to the quality versus the cost. Because you can go buy fish oils that are like, what is it, Nature's Sunshine, Nature's Pride, like the buy 2 get 1 or buy 1 get 1 free at Walgreens for $5. I wouldn't recommend that. I mean, you really have no idea really what you're getting and stuff like that, whether it's the rancidity or the toxicity or the mercury or anything else that's in there. So it really is about buying the quality versus just the quantity. Okay? Same thing in our foods. And realize a lot of people go, well, it's an investment. It costs more money to eat organic. It costs more money to buy nutrition. It costs more money. And yeah, it does. But realize as most Americans, we spend more money in the last 2 weeks in our life in medical bills than we did our entire life in investing in our health. But what if we invested a little bit more each and every day, so we never had to worry about investing in medications, in surgeries, trips to the doctor? I mean, think about people that are dealing with inflammation issues, especially like fibro and things like that. I had a call from a gal today. She's been dealing with fibromyalgia for 5 years. She hasn't been able to walk. The doctors have put her on can't work because she can't move her arms because of the pain. She's been on every medication for fibromyalgia that they came up with. And I've seen people that literally were taking 2 to 5 days off of work each month because of fibromyalgia, start taking those 2 supplements, change their diet and do a cleanse, and 70% of their symptoms were gone in 3 weeks. No medications. They got off their medications because they weren't working. So it's really, again, it's giving our bodies the ability to heal itself so we can function at a higher level and really live that life of wellness and vibrancy and abundance versus, oh, can I have some coffee? Right? Think about how many of us drag our butts through the day every day and we don't feel like we did when we were 18 years old. Why not? We should feel like kids every single day. But I can tell you when I was 25 and lived on Diet Mountain Dew and Hostess cupcakes and fast food and smoked, I was not feeling that way. I feel better today at 38 than I did at 25. Most people would not expect that to happen. But it's because I made changes throughout my life over the last 15 years. And that's allowed me to be able to reverse the back pain, the mental fog, the fibroids. I mean, all the other health issues that I had going up, through my 20s, my up till my 30s. I don't have those issues anymore. So it really is a matter of giving our bodies what it needs so it can heal itself. Okay? So these are the 5 ways to really protect yourself. First one is to eat well. Eat well to live well, right? Low glycemic diet, make sure you're including healthy proteins, healthy fats, and healthy carbs with every meal. What's a healthy carb? Anybody have an idea? Vegetables is one. Fruit is really up for debate. This goes back to what your metabolic design is. If you're somebody that's a protein and you are a fast transitioner of food, you'll process through that fat or through that fruit like nobody's business, and it'll spike your blood sugar. And then a half an hour later, even though it's healthy, your blood sugar is going to crash. And so you actually set yourself up for weight gain. You set yourself up for more inflammation. So even though it's healthy, it's nowhere near as good for most people as vegetables are. But we've all heard eat 7 to 9 or 9 to 11 or 5 to 7, depending on what year we're talking about. I think the government finally lowered it to 5 to 7 because we weren't getting the 7 to 9 or even the 9 to 11 that it started with. But most of us think that fruit is just as good as vegetables. And really, we want to look at 1 to 3 servings of vegetables per meal, and really only about 2 to 3 servings of fruit a day. Okay? So minimize the amount of sugar, because remember that banana, 7 teaspoons of sugar. An apple, 25 grams of sugar. So we're still looking at, what's that? My math is bad tonight. 6.5 grams of sugar, right? So we're looking at how much of that sugar we're getting, and that's going to spike our blood sugar. That's going to add more sugar. Even though it's a better sugar, it's still adding more sugar to our bodies. They've done studies now with things like fruit juice and things like that, that doesn't actually register in our brain that we're full. Because it's fructose. That doesn't have the same reaction that natural, like glucose sugars do, which is what we convert vegetables and other carbs into, is that glucose.
So
Okay.
what kind of vegetables do you, I mean, if you say 1 to 3 servings a meal,
Mm-hmm.
that's a lot of vegetables.
It's really not as hard as you think, right? So for breakfast, you do a couple eggs, spinach, onion, some garlic, and just do a scramble, do a saute. Some red pepper. I mean, you can throw in whatever you want, right? And then for a snack, do some veggies and hummus, which I know Dr. Brent was nice enough to be able to provide for us tonight. And then, or do celery and almond butter, or Mary's Gone crackers and hummus, Mary's Gone crackers and raw cheese. I mean, there's a lot of things that if you like start learning the right foods that you should be eating, then you start creating combinations that you really enjoy. Okay? So lunch, great big salad, all kinds of mixed veggies thrown in there, do some protein, throw in. Like today I had chicken that I had made in the crock pot on Sunday. I chopped up a cup of that, put that in there, huge mixed green salad, the field greens. Added in half an avocado, some black olives, a tomato. I think that was that and that. And I mean, that was so satisfying because I had plenty of healthy fats in there, which fats are what tell your brain you're full, right? So if you don't have those, good luck in stopping eating. And that's why you can sit down and eat a whole bag of pretzels with not even thinking twice. And so that was really satisfying and really filling. And I didn't even put any dressing on it because there was so much flavor from the fats that I had added to it. Right? So for a snack, I had a handful of trail mix, which is just a mixture of raw nuts. So pecans, almonds, walnuts. I threw some coconut in there, some dark chocolate. So you can still have chocolate, right? And then tonight for dinner, I had, because I was running between my office and home and letting the dogs out and eating, I had a piece of roasted pork that I had made yesterday that it was stuffed with feta and spinach. And then I had a side of sauteed like zucchini with some garlic and onions in it.
Then the other issue is unless you go to Whole Foods and get organic spinach and organic salad,
Well,
salads and spinach is loaded with pesticides.
right. So you can buy organic stuff. You can even buy organic stuff at Kroger. And at Kroger, it's about 10 to 50 cents difference between conventional and conventional and organic. Okay?
They don't have organic salad.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
At Kroger?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They have it fresh, and then they have it in the little package containers too. The package, just make sure you rinse it in your salad spinner and dry it.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, those are great options.
okay.
And it's much less expensive. Now, their produce has not been there, so don't shop on Sundays if you want to get produce. Their trucks come in Sunday night and Monday morning, so go after that. I had to learn that the hard way for a month in a row. I'd always go on Sunday after church and it's gone. I'm like, seriously?
Yeah.
So, but I mean, there's a lot of things that you can really do to pack in. And if you're out at a restaurant, instead of getting the fries or the starch, go, well, how many other vegetables can I put in there? And look at the menu and find other options that you have. Okay? Out with the bad, in with the good, right? So get rid of the toxic meat and dairy and all that stuff and put it in the good stuff. De-stress, right? We talked about that a little bit in the beginning. Do some breathing, do some yoga, do something where you're giving your body the ability to just relax, right? Sleep is precious. That's the time when our body heals. So if we don't have that, we don't have the ability to really recuperate and heal the way that we should. Okay? Supplement to be able to fill in the gaps and to be able to heal your body. And then the last thing is to really maintain that proper nervous system. And since Dr. Brent was kind enough to be able to open his office to us tonight, I'm actually going to have him come up and just share a little bit about what he does to help the nervous system stay and be able to maintain it the most effectively.
Well, and I brought snacks. And I've been sitting for a little bit, so here, take them back.
Thank you, Brent. And I also have samples of Genesis that I'm going to put out there, so you guys can be able to try that as well. Okay. Experience the deliciousness.
Where do you buy them?
It's actually from a company, it's on your sheet. It's from a company called Symmetry, and the website is symmetrycincinnati.com.
So you have to order, you can't go anywhere. to
You
buy
can't
it.
go online, and you can't go to the store and buy it. The reason being, I actually did the research and shopped for all the food ingredients in the Genesis. You made it, which is disgusting. You gotta experiment, right? It's $327 just to buy the food ingredients to make up one bottle. It's much cheaper.
What's a bottle?
It's like $40. So it's a little over $1 a day, about a month. So it's about $1 a day to get all of those nutrients and all of those healing foods in there and
Then
everything
you
else.
don't, do you take other vitamins and supplements besides this?
I would do that. I would do an omega blend, and then I would do a multivitamin. Okay. Symmetry also has one that's called Ultra Vitality. It comes in a powder form, so you don't have to actually swallow it. It tastes like Tang, and it has 90 nutrients in there. So again, it's giving your body over and above what you get from like a Centrum or One A Day or something like that.
Why is it called a whole food interesting?
Because it's actually made from whole foods. Okay. Now, there's a lot of stuff that's out there. Like there's other companies that have resveratrol in it, and it's made from Japanese knotweed. So they claim that there's resveratrol in it because Japanese knotweed does usually contain resveratrol. Now it's not standardized. You don't know how much is in there and how much really is or isn't in there, but yeah, so it's real whole foods. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Brent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good. Give Jen a hand. That was awesome. Do you have a little ticker, Daily? Does that work?
Yes, it's behind you.
Sweet. Well, I'd like to thank you all for coming. Get somebody, if you want to stand up, totally do that, because I know you've been sitting. I don't want you to end up like the kid she told a story of where she threw a tantrum. You know, that's another reason why I brought the food in. Again, welcome to our office. I'm Dr. Reynolds. We Upper Cervical Health Centers. Has anyone been to a chiropractor before? Okay, you all have. Okay. So kind of a traditional method of chiropractic. Upper cervical care is a little bit different. Has anybody ever had upper cervical care that's, I have a couple patients here. Okay. So what I want to do tonight is explain to you a little bit about what that is and subluxation. How many people have heard the word subluxation before from your chiropractors? Yes. So subluxation, they probably explained to you, bones pressing on nerve, therefore thereby interfering with the transmission of that impulse between the brain and the tissue cell, right? So if the nerve force can't get to the tissue cell at 100%, whatever it's going to, if it's your leg muscle, whatever, it's not going to work right. If it's your heart, liver, lung, kidney, whatever, it's just not going to work right. So we do things a little bit differently. If you look at your nervous system here, you see that, of course, everything in your body is controlled by your brain. You function from day to day, month to month, and year to year because of the nerve signals coming from your brain stem, down your spinal cord. It goes out to every single nerve, or every single organ, tissue, cell, gland in your entire body. Goes down to the ends of your toes, goes into your hands, goes back up into your head, neck, into your face. So without these signals, you lose function, right? So what we look for at Upper Cervical Health Centers is subluxation at the atlas and axis bones, the very two top bones of your neck. So we're talking about this point right here in your body. At this point, I could basically shut down anything in your body. So if we pick your pancreas out here, and there's one right there. if you block the nerve signal here, you're going to affect it, right? But watch this. I could affect it right here. Right? I could give you diabetes just by putting my finger right there on that same place. And we actually see patients recover from things like diabetes. One patient in particular, she came last year. She'd been diabetic since she was 5 years old. And so she knows about her insulin levels, believe me. She has the tracker on her, she tests it all the time. And she now knows she's out of adjustment because her numbers start going crazy. She doesn't have neck pain or mid-back pain or things like that, but she sees this function that other people can't see. And she knows about. So she's like, Dr. Rose, she calls, Dr. Rose, my numbers are up. Come on and get checked. We see, okay, we need to move the bone back off the brainstem in this area to allow that to function back there. And usually within 24 hours, her insulin levels normalize. That's pretty cool, huh? Yeah. It's like, well, we didn't touch your pancreas or anything else. So, but the subluxation has more far-reaching things. If we look at it, we see this is the top bone of the neck here. Okay, and this is what it should look like here. The brainstem and spinal cord go right through there, and it should be nice and open. Okay, check out this picture. This is what patients come in with. This. Well, actually, they think they're coming in for a number of variety of other things. You might call, like, and Jen mentioned some things like fibromyalgia or MS. I got migraines, my neck hurts, my back hurts. I see a lot of patients with vertigo and balance problems respond very well to this care. Asthma, allergy, pretty much you name it, because these nerves are controlling the function of your organs and everything. So who wants to be the one on the left? Yeah. Who wants to be the one on the right? No, you don't want to be that way. Life literally gets pinched off at there. Self-healing comes from being that nerve signal being able to get there. Got a sign on the wall that says the power that made the body heals the body. That's so true. Doesn't matter what you have, you can heal yourself. Doesn't matter what it is. If you give yourself the proper stuff, like Jim was talking about, and the nerve flow can get there to direct it. See, if you put on all the good stuff, but you don't have the proper nerve flow to your stomach and your intestinal organs, you can't even absorb it. You're going to be much better off. But I also see patients that come in and they look like the picture perfect of health. They're doing every single thing right. And you know, it's the type of people you want to be like. You're like, they're doing everything on the list. Except they're missing something. And they just keep getting sicker and sicker and they can't explain it. And they're not on a bunch of meds either. It's like, what's the deal? And then we literally put their head on straight, which I'll explain more about. And boom, they heal very, very quickly because they have the raw materials to make themselves already there. Patients that are on, the more drugs you're on, and we see, and you can ask Dana and my other assistants, you can ask them, the patients that are on the most drugs heal the slowest, heal the very slowest. So, here's another picture of it. So this would be the skull, this would be the top bone, atlas, and the second one, axis. It just moves like that. And what it does when it shifts like that, this bone, the atlas bone, holds your head straight. Okay? So when it shifts, look what it does to your head. It dumps it. Look like that. You see anybody walking around with they look like their head's crooked like this? And you wonder, are they listening for something? Right? You see that? Right. So who wants to be the one? So which one do you want to be? The one on the left or the one on the right? One on the left, right. Look at this. You can see that's your brainstem. Basically the hose is getting kinked off right there. Right. So yeah, there. And basically when we make the adjustments, we actually take you from here to here. And allowing 100% of that nerve impulse to flow through. So when your head tilts, it actually makes your whole body go out of alignment, which we call body imbalance. So when your head's tilted, your body's going to have to compensate. And it always does the exact same thing. It's kind of crazy, but it's very predictable. So it's easy for me to go, oh, you got it. So your brain uses your eyes for equilibrium. So in gravity, it tries to keep your eyes level. But if it finds itself subluxated and its head tilted, it's going to say shoulder, drop, hip, you drop too. So I'm going to try to maintain this balance as much as possible, but now I'm all crooked. Okay. So you end up with head tilt, shoulder tilt, hip tilt. Because your hips connect all the way down to the end of your feet, they should, remember the neck bone's connected to them, right? All the way down. Then it always makes one of your legs appear shorter than the other. So those who've been to chiropractors, most chiropractors will look, table and they'll get your feet, and they're not checking the size of your shoes or anything like that. They're checking to see if you have this imbalance there, because it represents imbalances in other places. Well, what they're doing is they're going through, and there's different procedures you can use to balance this out, and when you're done, you're balanced. Okay? But you live in gravity, so then you step off the table, and literally, you could literally get back on, and you'll see this relationship again. Off. And I've seen it. Because I used to practice that way. And I would test it. When I discovered upper cervical, so I would test my patients and be like, okay, walk down in the hall and come back. And then get back on the table, and you could totally adjust them again. Like, well, there's something missing there. So, and then I said, okay, how about just get off the table and get back on? So then they would do that, and it would be, as soon as they hit gravity, boom. It's just like those spinal traction machines that cost $1 million. They stretch it out, and the theory is good because really, in order to heal things like disc problems and things like that, you have to get the pressure off. That makes sense. Get the pressure off. But you live in gravity. So for 15 minutes, you might have got a little bit of healing time. But you live in gravity. It's like pulling your finger. It's distracted, but then it goes right back to that same place. So when you're in these positions for a long time, you start to degenerate. It's just like your car. You get damage and wear and tear on different parts because you're not designed to stay in that way for too long. So with this, you get inflammation. Inflammation in your joints and different things because you're causing damage. And what does your body do to heal? It uses inflammation for everything. If it's trauma, if it's bad food, whatever, it uses inflammation. And that's one of the major reasons why you get inflammation. It's because your body's trying to heal itself. And it's overloaded. Right. So what we simply do as upper cervical doctors, we figure out exactly how that bone has shifted. I do that by taking 3D x-rays. I have x-ray machines right here. So I get a three-dimensional picture of what that actually looks like. And I can tell within a millimeter how it's off of your brainstem, of where it should be. So when I make the correction, there's no twisting, popping, cracking, pulling. Is there any of that?
Nope.
How does it feel to get adjusted?
Awesome.
Awesome. Awesome, because you get a big dose of serotonin. Okay. Serotonin. You guys heard of serotonin, right? Serotonin, yeah. If you're depressed, you don't have enough serotonin. So they give you the Prozac and stuff, and that bombards your receptors with serotonin. That's not going to heal anybody. But when you adjust in this area, there's a direct link between there and your hypothalamus, which is your stress center, and it releases serotonin. And sometimes it releases a whole bunch, which inhibits your stress response in your body. And you kind of feel a little like, that felt cool. Like, yeah. And then after we make the upper cervical correction, which is very specific to our body, then we have you rest in our resting suite for 20 to 30 minutes. And then we get you back up and we check it again. So in order to actually heal, and this will make sense to you, you have to hold your adjustment. You cannot heal it if you keep adjusting it over and over and over again. In fact, what will happen is that you're going to create more trauma. If you keep adjusting it over and over again, I know people just tell me, well, chiropractors cause degeneration. Like, nuh-uh, we don't. We prevent it. Then I thought about it over and over again. So I keep twisting my ankle over and over again. Is it going to get more stable or less stable? Oh, darn it, unstable. And the more unstable a joint gets, the more your body's going to try to stabilize it with degeneration and inflammation and things like that. So our goal here is get you to hold your adjustment as long as possible. And we do that by the specificity of the adjustment is huge. And what we try to do is within the first 3 or 4 months, get our patients holding their adjustments for 3 or 4 weeks at a time. How long can you hold your adjustment?
Long time, 6
Long time.
months.
6 months. Wow, you're going to a chiropractor and then they say, you don't need to be adjusted today, you look great. No, it's every time you get adjusted, every time. Why? Because every time you come back in, you look like this. So what happens when you put your head on straight and you're staying in adjustment, your shoulders and everything really start to come out of that. And you take the pressure and stress off of all those areas that are being damaged because of those malpositions. And when you stay in that healing state over time, you just heal, 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 heal. People that hold their adjustments the longest heal the quickest. And then on top of that, if you're doing everything that Jen said, I mean, you're going to feel better than you have in your entire life. You have to. Right? It's a natural law. And what everything Jen and I are talking about is natural laws. These are laws of life. And we play by those laws and not try to make them up, and go against them, then you win every single time, and regardless of a diagnosis or whatever it is you have. Okay? That's just a picture of the short legs. Some research. So, get checked. Jen, are you here?
I am.
Are you eating all the hummus?
No,
That's
I think
good.
a lot of them.
Actually, the hummus there is, it's actually edamame hummus. It's made of soybeans. However, it's non-GMO. Just so you know.
Which means it hasn't been genetic.
Not it's a real soybeans, like real live ones, not like fake ones have a patent number. So, so get checked. For coming here tonight, Jen and I have some gifts for you. Basically, if you want to get checked, if you want to get nutrition profile and things, and I'll have it up here, then Jen has a deal for you. I have one for you if you want to get checked for subluxation. And then we have a combo deal. So if you want to get checked for both, so let's just look at upper cervical. So what we're offering is our consultation, exam, and x-ray. We normally charge $268 for it, for $47. Jen's advanced wellness, free full consultation, toxicity assessment, candida assessment, action plan. So here's what you're going to be able to do at the end. Normally $149 for $49. Right? If you want to try both, which is what I recommend to do, you gotta give yourself all the nutrients you want. Like she said, you don't go out and buy the $5 bottle of fish oil because it says nature's made on it. Nature did not make that one. A lab did that. So the combo we're doing for $79 together. Okay. But first, does anybody have any questions for me about upper cervical care? Does it make sense did it always make sense to you that you have to hold your adjustment to heal? And you're like, well, why don't I heal? I know Jen came to us, she's been getting adjusted for how many years?
That's how I started. Like.
Okay.
So, how Brent and I met, I was seeing another chiropractor, and his wife came in and took over that office. And I had seen chiropractors for 17 years. When I started, I was seeing a chiropractor 3 times a week, every week for 8 years, doing massage twice a week. I started using Genesis and the product that Symmetry has called glucosamine and the omegas. That took me from 3 times a week to within 2 months, it took me from 3 times a week to once every 3 weeks. And now I see a chiropractor, I see a good upper cervical doc every 2 to 6 weeks, depending on how I'm feeling, just to be able to see what's going on. When I first started seeing Dr. Brent and his wife, Gina, I had literally, every time I go to a chiropractor, my atlas would be out, and which caused me to have headaches. So every other week, I was still back in a chiropractor half the time, especially the more I was on the computer, the worse it was. I came and saw them. They did an actual x-ray that looked at the alignment in my bones. So I had 31 degrees on this side and 35 degrees on this side. So every other chiropractor felt it, and they go, oh, you're out. I wasn't out. That's how my bones were structured. So they would actually make me out, which hence more headaches. So I started seeing these guys, and the first time I saw them, I was like, huh, did I do anything? Because it wasn't the rack and crack like I was used to, right? And then I started getting checked again. I was still out, and I was still out. And within about 6 weeks literally like every other week, right? About 6 weeks, I held my adjustment. And then I held it for another 2 weeks. And then I held it for another 2 weeks. And then I held it for another 2 weeks. And literally, there have been times where I've gone 3 months, at least, without needing an adjustment and without losing my adjustment. Mm-hmm. That was amazing from where I came from. And it's the way that I understand it, it's like your spine is twisted up like this, like a towel, right? You twist a towel. Well, most chiropractors, in my experience, go in and they adjust everything in between. What these guys do is they release the top, so everything else kind of just falls into place and it goes back to the way it should. And that's why I function better when I've had an upper cervical correction versus a typical chiropractic correction, because I hold my adjustments longer and better, and then you support that with the nutrition to make sure your body's getting what it needs to hold the two together. So These guys are the only people in 17 years that have been able to get me to hold an adjustment for any length of time at all. So that's why I like you guys so much.
So, Mike, how do you adjust the atlas?
Well, come here. Yeah.
And can we do this at home with pliers and scissors?
You probably would
Play with
still.
pliers, but not scissors.
Okay.
Yeah, that might. You don't want to break the skin at all. Your malpractice goes up. What we do after we've determined how you're actually out of alignment, you're actually adjusted, and you feel free to go in the first room. That's where my office is. You can see the table. It says the table's on the ground. It's about yay high, and I'm really tall, so it's way down there. And you're adjusted in neutral position, kind of like you're sitting there, except you are in fetal position. And from that fetal position, then I make the contact. I use my hand here, and then when I make the correction here, just like that, it's just right there on the skin. It's not grabbing the head and moving it around like that.
And it's
Great.
it's just, it just happens.
Yeah.
So,
and
and
you're like-
most people are like, oh, did that do anything at all? Like a lady
You're
come
done.
in, lady came in last week. She came in last Monday, severe vertigo, and they were trying everything, nothing would work, and her husband's like looking up vertigo and everything on the computer, and he finds vertigo in upper cervical care articles. He's like, well, what's this? And starts reading. He's like, oh, well, what? What? Non-surgery, no drugs, what? And then he finds us. And then they came in on Monday, and we adjusted her. And she called our office on Tuesday and said, oh my gosh, I was able to lie down on my back. Because she had such severe vertigo, she would just take objects to help her and just stare at them. She couldn't move, she couldn't lie down, anything. So by this Monday when I checked her, she's doing awesome. Right? She's not afraid to turn her head anymore. And just like sometimes happens like that quick. But what is the normal medical route? Tons of drugs, do this, and even physical therapy and stuff in the balance clinics are taking your head and moving it all around in crazy positions. But that doesn't relieve the pressure that's causing the problem.
Right. Remember the stress and the relaxation thing I was talking about? That's the best part. You get to go after your if you need an adjustment, you get to go and sit in the back room in this cushy leather recliner, put a little blanket over you, and rest for 20 minutes. And you're forced to do it.
Not with your phone.
You don't get to
Not
leave.
with your phone.
You get to go back there, no phone.
Yeah.
How does a lot of hardware affect your process?
Like if you got screws and nuts and bolts and stuff.
Plate and 4 screws at C6, and
Okay.
then 2 huge rods with 8 screws at 3, 4, 5,
Okay.
and this one.
Well, I mean, those places are gonna stay where they are, but things around them will move. But I don't adjust those. If you can, if up here is subluxated, we can move that and it'll bring you to your best alignment. I've adjusted patients, because I'm so specific, I've adjusted patients that have been fused from C3 down to C7. Most doctors don't fuse C1 or C2. It's too dangerous. Their malpractice goes way up. It's like, I'm gonna stay away from that, it's too dangerous. Right? So usually they leave that. A lady in Seattle, I adjusted from, she had the C3 through C7. She still couldn't feel her feet. I adjusted her, she got off the table, she said I could feel my feet. I just started a kid today who broke his odontoid, which is part of C2. He got hit by a car when he was a kid. So I'm anxious to see his x-rays, but we should be able to move Atlas very easily. Even with that screw in there.
That was a question. I know we've talked about doing this on children,
In children,
and the question is, since their bones are much softer and not as mature and hardened as ours, is it safe to do?
Absolutely. I have 2 babies. Well, 1 baby now. The other one's 4. But the 4-year-old I adjusted the same day he was born. Same day. He basically adjusted himself. I just put my hands up there, and he just went like that and moved it. He was laying on my belly. We had a home birth. Yes, I'm crazy. People think, but I don't care. It's safer to have him at home. And then, so his head turned to the right on my chest, and he wouldn't turn his head to the left. And so I started just experimenting, because I'm a scientist. You're like, ooh, he won't turn his head that way.
A real toy.
Yeah, and all of a sudden I took my daddy hat off, as a brand new daddy, and I put my doctor hat on, and I said, this is interesting. So I felt his atlas, and it felt like it was sticking out on one side. So I just put my hands there. Then he started going like this. and we went into it, and I just felt it move away from my hand. Then he turned his head to the other side.
Wow.
Birth trauma. About 80% of kids are born with subluxated atlases. And that's not from my research. That's from a Dr. Gutmann from Germany who actually did that research. But they actually link a lot of behavioral problems and things, not only to the food they eat, but from birth trauma. Trauma they sink to their nervous systems at birth. From pull them out, pliers, suck them out with this, and yank them out this way. Like C-section rate, you saw about obesity in Cincinnati. C-section rate in Cincinnati and Ohio is 35%.
Wait, say that again. Like, what's that?
C-section rate. If you have a baby in Ohio,
Yeah.
35% of you are gonna have a C-section.
What's
Oh,
And relative to
national.
what?
Yeah,
What does, I
national
mean,
law.
what's the?
Natural birth.
No,
No,
well,
Why
What's
are
the
they
two
doing
hundred
that?
percent mean?
well,
Compared
35
to other states.
so about
Country.
Compared to what? Is
Yeah,
10%
compared to
good?
Well,
Is
other-
100% good?
none of 0% is great. But compared to down in Tennessee, there's a midwife clinic, and since 1972 through 2010, they have a 1%
Okay.
C-section rate. Right. When you do C-section, the risk of death goes up. It goes from like 1 in 10,000 vaginal birth to like 1 in 2,000. And now we're increasing the rate. That's a whole another lecture.
For the baby or the?
Mother.
No.
So, but anyway, and I always advocate, just like, you eat good food whether you feel good or you don't. Get checked whether you feel good or you don't. Right? What are your insulin levels? Most people just don't know. That one patient, she could tell. Right? And that's why I always advocate checking children, even if they have symptoms. Because why should we wait for them to get a whole bunch of symptoms and then do something about it versus, prevention. Right? That's where healthcare has to go in the future. Because if it does not, we're just going to keep doing the same thing over again, expecting different results. More statistics, more statistics. So. Anyway, if you're interested in either of these, you can see Jen, you can see me. Dana, she's up front too, and she can take care of that for you as well. Any more questions?
If you guys would do me a favor, on the second sheet is an evaluation. I would love feedback, how we can be able to make it better, what you really liked, and things like that. So, cool. I
If you
so
liked
much
what-
appreciate you guys coming out. Around the corner, out by Meredith, who's here from Fleet Feet, there are samples of Genesis. Enjoy them. They're yummy. And then we're here to answer any
And
questions.
talk to Meredith. Fleet Feet, they came over and they've got some deals for you.